welcome back to another episode of Platinum. It's been 2 weeks, I do apologise, it's been very busy, but we have an absolute banger of an account to get back on track, get the wheels a-rolling again in Vigilant Crows. Crow's account was started about 5 years ago, and as you're going to see, Crow is a completionist and an ultra rare hunter. There is a lot of juicy ultra rares on this account, a lot of very good games. Sadly, no Mayo. I'm going to spoil that one now. I know we'll probably lose half the audience, but we're just going to have to track on through. Crow's percentage rate is about 96%, and let's jump in, shall we? And as you can see, we're getting the ball rolling with an ultra rare, 100% no platinum trophy this time in 10-second Ninja X. Does it take 10 seconds? Are there 10 ninjas? I'm not entirely sure, but Crow smashed through that in a week and 2 days. We then get into Alien Isolation, which, if you're a long-time viewer of this series, you know that I love to see this game. It's always awesome. This is one where it's a first-person survival horror. You're on a space station with the classic alien from Ridley Scott's movie, and it's hunting you down. It's not a fun time. You hide in lockers, think Outlast. Absolute great game. Trophies kind of suck. You got to do a few things like beat the game without dying, which, when the alien's unkillable, is not the easiest thing you'll ever do, but it is a very fun game and definitely one I would highly recommend. We get into another Aliens game here with Aliens Fireteam Elite, which is a game I'm currently working through with 2 of my very good friends with the support of Vigilant Crow and Beautiful Torment from the Discord. Do join the Discord if you want to join a trophy hunting community, link in the description below of course. But Aliens Fireteam Elite is kind of like a Left 4 Dead sort of clone. You're fighting waves of enemies with different classes and different guns. There's a lot of difficulties. None of them stack, which makes this game very annoying to do. And like me, Crow did the PS4 version, which well, it's something. There's a lot of frame drops, there's a lot of disconnects. It's kind of tricky to do the PS4 version, so I'm very impressed that you did that in 2 months and 4 weeks. We then get into some cheeky Apex. I love my Apex. It's the only battle royale that I ever got into. I should check it out. I've not played Apex in about 2 seasons, but it's just perfect. It's the perfect battle royale, besides the fact that it tragically does not have a platinum trophy. Crow, go get that PS5 stack. You know you want to. We then get into some Atari flashbacks, which it is a 0.93%. It's a very tricky game, or suite of games, I guess you would call it. But I will say, I believe this is the one which you can save scum. I think Dorothy from the Discord, I'm going to be plugging the Discord a lot. I think he was telling me recently that you can somewhat cheese it with save scumming, and hence probably the 11 hours and 35 minutes. Crow, do let me know. We then get Back 4 Blood here, which would have been 100% until today when they dropped to the DLC. This is another Left 4 Dead clone, funny enough made by the original devs of Left 4 Dead. This is very similar, but it has one thing that I think cripples it. It has a card system for builds that is very convoluted for what it does, and I think it would have just been a lot better of a game if you could jump in, you could have fun. It was just a popcorn brain. You shut your brain off, you jump in, you jump out. It'd be a lot more fun, but we had to make everything super complex in Back 4 Blood, and that is why it's only at 50% on my account. I should clean this up. I should do this. Crow, you want to do the DLC with me? Probably not, because bots are super OP. If you're going to do this game, currently the bots are ridiculous. Do it in single player, let them carry you, it's going to be great. We then get Battle Worlds Chronos, which I have no clue what this is. Yeah, I have no clue. But we do then get into a lovely 100% and a series completion here with Bioshock 1, 2, and 3. Now, if I were to rate these games personally, I would say Bioshock 1 is the best, for obvious reasons. Bioshock 2 is next best because it's just the first game with a couple new things. And then Infinite sucks. That's my personal opinion. Not because 1999 mode's hard or anything. 1999 mode is relatively cruisy. But those DLCs are just bad times. I lost my hair because of it. It was bad times. Don't recommend. We then get Blast and Bunnies, which it's an ultra rare. I assume it's some sort of free-to-play competitive multiplayer that's awful. That's going to be my stab at the dark there. We then get some Bleed. Bloodborne's 100%, which I love to see. I was actually looking at Bloodborne very recently as one that I should go back to myself. I do have the platinum on my old account, Mudstuff and 767, if you wanted to go check that out on PSNP. I do have the platinum and the 100% there, but I never done it on on Symmetry because my PlayStation 5 is the discless version and Bloodborne is a disc, which it's a sad day. You smashed it out in a month or 2 weeks. That's very impressive because it is. I mean, you can use the chalices. There's always the comfort challenge chalice that gives you like 69,000 million billion souls per run that takes about 2 seconds, which is very nice. But yeah, I would say that 1 month and 2 weeks is very, very impressive. Also, if I move about a lot, I'm now standing, so I haven't quite worked out where I need to be. So if I'm way off over here or I'm way off over here, just call me an idiot in the comments and I will cry. But we then have some Bloons TD5 with just shy of an ultra rare right there. Oh my god, he's got 737 ultra rares. That's terrifying. We then have some Bully here, which is Rockstar's, one of Rockstar's best games, I would say. You play as a bully at a high school. It's got a semi-open world, and you make kids cry. Also, you've got to go attend class where you've got to guess geography and very basic science. It's kind of fun. I really like that mechanic. It was a game that had a really cool collectibles feature where during winter, I believe it was, all the collectibles that were in the town would be stored in like a shed, which made it very easy to collect them. But it's very cool that was quite dynamic where they were like, realistically, this stuff would not be out in the snow, so we're going to cart it away and keep it there. We then have the Call of Duties with only 2, which, Crow, you're an ultra rare hunter, and you've only got 2 Call of Duties. That's it, video's over. Video's over. No, but we have the 100% for Cold War, which is not awful. Dead Ops kind of sucks, but the zombies in the base game is fairly cruisy, and the campaign's kind of a bit of a nothing campaign. World War II, on the other hand, probably the reason Crow only has 2 ultra rares here. It's rough. Oh, two COD platinums. The zombies in World War II are very, very rough. Some of the Easter egg steps, like the Morse code on Shattered Throne, I believe it is, or the Raven statue, just anything to do with Darkest Shore is just, oh, you don't want to do it. It's bad. It's a bad time, but it's a very fun game. It's one where I actually met 2 of my closest mates that I trophy hunt with. I met them doing World War II. We tackled whatever that was, and now we don't speak. No, it's but yeah, that was a game I have very fond memories of because I met 2 other very amazing trophy hunters. Catherine Full Body here with a 2.76 percentage rate. Ooh, this is one I'm jealous in. City Skylines, you've got the Chirpnado. If you have been around my channel or the Discord for any length of time, you have heard me complain about the Chirpnado in City Skylines. So, City Skylines is essentially a game that you, believe it or not, build cities in. A lot of the trophies are tied to having a certain number of buildings in an industrial district. Maybe upgrading a park to 5 stars, maybe having a zoo, maybe stalking a pedestrian. But one trophy, Chirpnado, requires you to see a tornado made of small blue birds, which, I mean, that sounds like nothing, right? Except that it has like a 0.003% chance of spawning. I legit have 600 hours AFK in this game and have never seen it. Most people I talk to that have the trophy didn't see it because they just left their PlayStation on overnight for like 6 months. Very much in that case myself. Maybe it'll pop one day. I'm very much, if that pops, I will go back and clean up everything else. If it doesn't pop, there's no point. I'll just play other things. We then have some Clicker Heroes, which I believe is a free-to-play clicking sort of game, kind of like Candy Crush and stuff. I know Crow, I believe, has like the Frozen one and stuff later on this list. We then have Controls 100%, 2 weeks and 4 days. Mate, did you use the assist mode? No, you didn't. But yeah, controls, it's a video game. It's got cool combat. The story's the whole setting is really interesting. I'd say that the story's more just confusing, to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, the setting's really cool. Essentially you're in a paranormal bureau as it's hit by paranormal entities taking over. So you've got a lot of possessed vending machines and stuff like that. It's a cool concept. I definitely liked it quite a bit, but I hated the first DLC. I believe it's called the Ore Foundation from memory. It's like a red salt mine, and there's a lot of cat collectibles. It was not great, but if you were a fan of Alan Wake, for example, this is actually like a precursor to that. The second DLC kind of ties in Alan Wake a bit, which I thought was really, really cool. We then got some Cryptark at a 4.12% platinum rarity, followed by only one Dark Souls game. I am interested, Crow. Is that just because you haven't got round to them yet? I do see you did it this year. Is it because you just haven't got round to them, or is it because it's not necessarily your genre and you've just knocked out the staples like Bloodborne, Dark Souls 1, not Demon Souls, maybe Sekiro? We might see that later on, maybe. I am curious if that is the case or not. Sorry, I just realized I was completely off the screen just then. I'm just going to go for a walk. I'll just let you guys look at the games right here. But we then have Darkest Dungeon, which is like a roguelike dungeon crawler, I believe. It's definitely a dungeon crawler, hence the dungeon in the name. But I've not heard particularly good things about Darkest Dungeon. I've been told not to play that game. We then get to your most recent game in Days Gone, which you're slowly chugging through, which it's okay. It's a shame we're not getting a sequel, but Days Gone has in my opinion, two massive issues. The first 10 hours of that game sucks. It is so slow. There's literally a mission where you just stand still, which cool. And then the other bit that I have an issue with is the whole last quarter of the game is just, you could have ended it. It's like Alien Isolation. It's just got too much at the end, which kind of drags on a bit, unfortunately. We then have some Dead Nation with a whopping 4 days and 50 hours for a cheeky 2.63 ultra rare. This is one of those zombie apocalypse games that I've always kind of gone, oh, I should play that, and then I don't. Maybe one day. We then get some Dead Risings here with Dead Rising and Dead Rising 2 off the record. No, there's another Dead Rising 2. Oh, what's the other one called that's gonna eat away at me? I can't think of what it's called, but there is another Dead Rising 2. It might just be Dead Rising and Dead Rising 2 off the record as the spin-off. I think that might be the case, because I think the dude from Dead Rising 2 had blonde hair, and the guy on that icon is definitely Frank. You've then got Dead Rising 3, which I believe initially was an Xbox One launch title, an exclusive that has since been ported across maybe. And then Dead Rising 4 exists, but you should not play it. It's very, very bad. Death Road to Canada, I've never heard of in my life. But if it's anything like Road 96, that's pretty cool. We then have some Defender Quest Valley of the Forgotten DX, which it's an ultra rare, so it's got that going for it. We then have some Defense Grid 2 before a stack of Don't Starves here with Don't Starve and Don't Starve Together. The first game obviously not having a platinum, but both of them being very rare with 0.57 and 2.46% rarities respectively. We then get some Dragon's Crown, and to round out the Ds, Dying Light, which is one of my personal most enjoyable games. I met another very good friend that I trophy hunt with doing the Bozak Horde in Dying Light, which I'm sure I've told that story so many times in the 24 episodes, I believe it is, we have done of this series. You might also notice so far, we've had one game that wasn't 100% on this account, and we've had a metric boatload of ultra rare platinums. So I love this account. I've looked at this account a few times over the years, and it is a very, very impressive one. But let's move into the E's. Alrighty, and moving to the E's, we only have one here with Enter the Gungeon, which is a, oh no, I'm drawing a blank. Let me go into it real quick to justify myself. I believe it's a roguelike. It's like a, see, I wouldn't have even called it a shooter. Like, I know they're calling it a shooter here. I would have, I guess, like, yeah, like an adventure game. It's just like a little dungeon crawling adventure game, I guess you call it. There's also Exit the Gungeon, which is also really good. We then move on to some Fallen Legion of Flames of Rebellion, which is a 1.94% ultra rare, before getting into only 2 Fallouts with Fallout 4 and Fallout Shelter. Crow, there's ultra rare trophies in Fallout 76, wink wink nudge nudge. Fallout, alright, if I've got to rank the Fallouts, New Vegas is the best. 76 is like right behind it, and those two probably change for me frequently. Like 76 had issues, it was glitchy, it was a mess, there was no NPCs, but its world was by far the best and most interesting. There's only so much sand and ruined building you can really look at before that gets boring. Fallout 3 is next, and Fallout 4 doesn't exist. That's actually a glitch. Fallout Shelter, it was a mobile game. You build like an XCOM essentially base under a hill. It's okay. You did it legit, which I'm actually pretty impressed about, because I do know you can cheese it by just changing your internal clock over and over again, which is probably what I'll do at some point. Only one Far Cry with Far Cry 5. You probably picked one of the worst ones to do. I would definitely recommend maybe 4. 4 is probably 4 or 3. 3 is obviously the classic, but 4 is also quite good. Although Far Cry 5 did have decent DLC. The Vietnam DLC is okay. It's very short. You can do it in like 2 hours. The Mars DLC is one of the worst things I've ever played. But the Zombies DLC, which is like a knockoff of COD Zombies, I actually kind of really enjoyed. Besides the trophy to kill 10,000 zombies, which is where you literally just, you sit on a combine harvester, you jam it in the door of a barn, and you just leave your console on overnight, and all the zombies run into the blades. Pointless. We then move on to only one Final Fantasy with Final Fantasy VII, and it is the original one from the PS1, also known as the good Final Fantasy VII. I am spicy today. We then have probably one of the most impressive platinums we have seen on this entire series in Fortnite. Crow, why did you do that to yourself? Do let us know in the comments. It took you 6 months. It's a 0.12% trophy, or platinum. And for those who don't know, the trophies aren't linked to that really crap Battle Royale. They're linked to what the original Fortnite was. So when Fortnite first released, for those who are curious, it was like a base building survival game, I would say. It's kind of hard to describe. Not great is how I would describe it. And it didn't do well. And then all of a sudden PUBG and stuff came out. So they then took Fortnite and they made a Battle Royale that then exploded and is the Fortnite you know today. That Fortnite doesn't have trophies. The initial one does. And that's what Crow spent 6 months doing. Are you okay? We then have some Frostpunk, which is another 1.51% platinum. I love seeing the ultra rares. It fills me with joy. We then have some Gauntlet here at a 2.13%, followed by one of the more baffling choices on the account in Gems of War. I did warn you that Crow likes these Candy Crush knockoffs. Like, I am pretty confident there's a Frozen one in here somewhere, because I think I've been mystified in the past. We then have some God Eater Resurrection, Greedfall, which hurts my soul because that game glitched on me, and I have gone for that perfect ending, which requires very precise dialogue choices and things like that, about 3 times, and they're all about a 30-hour playthrough if you're slow and bad at the game like me. So seeing the 100% fills me with joy, but also sadness. I do also need to do the DLC. I believe I do own it. I think... Do I own it? I think I own it. I think I do own the DLC for Greedfall. I think I picked it up for like $3 at some point. Next up is Green Hell, which is a survival game. So you are set in the Amazon. Most of the trophies are tied to things like catching a certain amount of different types of fish, or not dying of 17 different injuries. That is literally one of the trophies. I have that one. This game is very fun if you like the forest or the long dark, for example. You're gonna like Green Hell. It is an ultra rare trophy. It is a little bit janky, I will say that. You do have to beat it on the hardest difficulty, which I've only played it a little bit. I definitely need to get back to this game at some point. Crow, carry me, please. But it is very fun. It's got a weird learning curve. I just realized I was half off the camera. I hope that hasn't been a thing for too long. But you do have quite a lot of clunky inventory. The crafting system is rough. Things like lighting a fire are rough, but once you get the hang of it, it's fun. If you like the forest, or for some reason you like Stranded Deep, Are You Okay?, you will like Green Hell. We then have some Hand of Fate. We then get a cluster of Harvest Moons with A Wonderful Life, Light of Hope, Mad Dash, One World, and Save the Homeland, with pretty much all of these being ultra rares. The first one is a 3.72, the next one is a 2.77. Mad Dash is the most common of the lot with an 8.69%. The one that you have not completed yet, but you are still currently working on, hence the 1st November trophy there, is a 2.14%, and the last one here is a 4.66. They're all very impressive. I don't think we've seen a platinum that's more than a 50% rarity at all on this list. In fact, the one that I can think of off the top of my head that is the most common that I've seen is Control, and Control's like a 30% max. We then get maybe Dark Souls 1 or Bloodborne, actually. Those are quite high too. I believe those are both around the 30 mark as well. We then get some Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms, some Invisible Ink, which is like a really cool stealth XCOM kind of game with a whopping 0.41% rarity right there as well. This is one that's been on my radar for a while. It is a very, very tricky one. I believe there is like an Endless Days mode, which you do have to get some trophies in, which is kind of really, really rough. But you smashed it out in 2 weeks, which is, I think, the fastest I've seen that. We then have Kingdom Come Deliverance, which I didn't know you had, Crow. Do let me know if this is worth playing, because I've owned this for years. I've explored it a little bit because I love medieval history. I love medieval architecture, stuff like that. I believe it or not, I look like a meathead. I am a meathead, but I find that stuff interesting. This is a brutal platinum. You've got to do 2 playthroughs minimum. You've got to each playthrough is like 50 hours. One of them, I believe you can't die. One of them, I believe you can't use weapons. I think you can only kill one person in the entire game, that person being linked to the story. There's a lot of trophies for things like teaching yourself how to read, which I clearly need to do based on this series. But it's a very interesting game. The combat is very similar to Think Chivalry. It's very unforgiving, but as you learn it and you get more skills in it, your character gets better at it, because realistically he's getting better at swinging an axe the more he does it. It's a cool concept. We only have 1 Kingdom Hearts with the first game. Kingdom Lands is like a side-scrolling 2D, really charming looking game that I've had downloaded forever but haven't got around to doing yet. Lords of the Fallen is a glitch. This game doesn't exist. No, this is actually... Lords of the Fallen, funny enough, is my longest incompleted game, because it is utter trash, but it's a Souls-like, think Dark Souls, but your character is wearing cement boots, and that's probably the best way to describe it. And we're going to round out the L's with Lost Sea. Alrighty, and to get into the M's, we've got McDroid here. No platinum, but it is a juicy 1.21% completion rate. We then got some Mutant Year Zero, Road to Eden, which is like a tactical turn-based game that I've heard very, very good things about. I think a few people have recommended these games to me in the comments. We then have Not a Hero, Omega Quintet, One More Dungeon, which was it the last dungeon? Is that the last game you've played with a dungeon? Outlast 1, I am curious, Crow, do you plan on doing Outlast 2 and the dreaded Messiah trophy at some point? For those of you who are curious, Outlast 1, Outlast 2 both have a trophy for not dying and beating the game on the hardest difficulty. but Outlast 2 takes it up a notch by doing it with only ever using one battery, which is very, very difficult because you're playing 9/10 of the game in the pitch black. We then have some Phantom Doctrine, some Pixel Heroes, Fire, which I believe was made by the people who did Hades, which is a game we did not see on this list. Quest of Dungeons, some Rainbow Moon, Record of Agarest War, which is one I have never heard of. The Remnant from the Ashes 100% is one that I'm very, very impressed on. This is a Souls-like with guns, which sounds horrific, but is actually a really, really good combo. This is a game I streamed way back in the day, which, stay tuned, I am hoping to be starting to stream again very, very soon on the YouTube, so do let me know if you are excited for that. But Remnant from the Ashes has an awful DLC, really bad. It's shocking. You've got to do 10 bosses. It's essentially a boss rush with, I believe, them getting harder the longer the game goes on. So if you get really bad RNG and the timer keeps going, things are going to get harder for you. It's kind of rough. I don't like that at all, to be perfectly honest with you. We then have some Resident Evils here, and quite a few of them. We've got, you've just started Resident Evil. You have one trophy. Hold on a second. Crow. You've got one trophy in Resident Evil 1. You did that on the 2nd of November. This is Detective Symmetry is here now. I'm gonna sort this out. We then 4 days or 3 days, basic math, start Resident Evil 0 and earn 4 trophies. What gives, man? You're a completionist. We can't be adding games and having them as E ranks. I mean, who wants to beat Resident Evil 0 realistically? Resident Evil 0 is a rough one. There's no inventory box. You've just got to drop all of your stuff on the floor at all times. It's kind of not fun. The first game is amazing, of course. It's the classic. The version on the PS4, I believe, is from the GameCube's port. God, the Game Boy game. That's a throwback. The one on the Ghost ship. We then have Resident Evil 2 Remake. You've done the 100%, which means you've done the Wave 100 zombies in the gas station, which you are braver than I am, because I did not bother. I should at some point. You've got RE7's DLC wrapped up as well. If you are a fan of the channel, you probably know that I did my Platinum journey in RE7 as one of my first videos on this channel. It was such a good game with a very popular name. Yeah, great game, great. I need to do the DLC at some point. There's 5 of them, I believe. One of them's like an escape room from a bedroom. One of them is like a story-based one, and a couple of them are more combat-based or like getting through on the hardest difficulty with randomizers, which is not fun. Also, there's a blackjack one for reasons. We then get into some revelations with the first and the second game here. The first one you blew through, which I believe is the worst of the two, right? That's the one with the raid mode that's got a lot of grinding. And then 2 is obviously an ultra rare. Maybe they both got great raid modes. Can't speak. Yeah, maybe they both do. We then have some Resident of Fate, some Reis, whatever that pronunciation is, with the 0.56. I've actually never seen that game before, but that is a hefty ultra rare right there. We've got some Rogue Legacy, which is a roguelike, of course. Sid Meier's Civilization's a really cool one to see here. I think we've only ever seen that on one other account on Platinum, which was Heather's account, I believe, which was another amazing one on this series. I didn't know there was DLC. That's kind of rough, but a 3.73. This is like a tile-based strategy game, is how I would describe Civ. It's a lot of fun, actually, but I did not know there was DLC with trophies, which is kind of very rough. We've then got some Slay the Spire, which I think that's a card-based game. I've heard very good things. I believe Peter from Missing Collectible adores this game. I think he even did a video on it. Shout out to Missing Collectible. Go give them a watch, they're good. Space Overlords, Star Ocean The Last Hope. I don't think this is one of the MMO Star Oceans. Obviously, a lot of these games that you see aren't completed. You'll actually see the timestamps are in 2022. Crow is actively working on all of them. because unlike me, he knows how to keep a 100% account. Stardew Valley's 100% in only 2 months. I will say, you should definitely play Graveyard Keeper at some point, which is a clone of Stardew Valley, but better. We've got Stranded Deep next, which, yikes. That's like the forest, but on a raft. And, trying to think of a positive thing to say. There's coconuts. There's a lot of coconuts. We then get Banner Saga, Banner Saga 2, and Banner Saga 3. I think Banner Saga 2 is the one where you actually need the platinum in Banner Saga to get the platinum in Banner Saga 2. I think if you just start a new game in 2 instead of carrying over your save, you won't have enough ingredients or something, or crafting materials or something, which is a really awful way of doing that, and a thing I don't see many people talk about. Do correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but I believe it is Banner Saga that does that. We then have the Elder Scrolls 5 with some Skyrim right here. We've got the Escapists. The Evil Within's 100% is a super impressive one. This is another one that is very, very low on a completion on my account. I had a lot of issues with frame drops in this game. I'd be interested to hear if I'm alone on that or not. We've got the Flame in the Flood next, followed by The Long Dark, which is an amazing game right here, and it is nice to see that they've finally fixed the glitch trophy on The Long Dark, so that platinum is now fully obtainable again. This is a survival game set in the harsh Canadian winter. You've got to deal with things like water, sleep, dehydration, which is water, calorie intake, wolves. Wolves play a big part of it. Random generation of different things, I believe, is another part of it. There's quite a few things, actually. It's an interesting game. It's a long game. I think the platinum's going to take about 150 hours. It's one I definitely plan on doing at some point. It's just that such a beefy platinum is kind of terrifying. But moving on, we have The Sims 4, which it looks like you did maybe legit as well. Looks like you didn't use the library. In fact, actually, I do know, because we did talk in the Platinum Standard Discord, link in the description, wink, wink, that you did it legit. And I warned you that the frames were bad in that game, and the frames are bad in that game. We then have The Witcher 3 Complete Edition here, which has all the DLC. Fantastic game. The Witcher 2 is still better, but it's very good. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what we get for the PS5 remaster. Maybe I'll stack this game. Maybe I'll do a rare stack right there. We've got They Are Billions next, followed by Thief, which is the really bad reboot to the PC stealth Thief games from the early 2000s. This one is... I plan on doing it myself at some point, mostly just because of the ultra rare and because I got it on sale for like 50 cents. But it's not great. It's kind of, you've got hub worlds, you've got to steal jewelry, all that fun stuff, but there's just no charm to it. It's kind of just this dark, dingy world. And once you've stolen one thing, you've stolen all of the things. It's kind of very, very repetitive. Moving on, we have This War of Mine, The Little Ones, followed by Tiny Metal, Torment Tides of Numenera. Let me have another attempt at that. Tides of Numenera. I've slowed it down and I've got it. Vanquish is next, which I believe is it Challenge 6 is the tricky one in this game. This is a very fast-paced shooter that has challenges that are quite difficult. These are the things that keep the platinum very close to being an ultra rare, and I think it's Challenge 6 and Challenge 13 from memory that are the absolute brutal ones. We then got some Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown, followed by some Void Bastards, which hurts me to say because I try not to swear on this channel too much. We've got some Wargroove, followed by Warsaw, some Wolfensteins here with the New Order and the Old Blood. I am curious, Crow, do you plan on doing the new Colossus at some point? Is Mein Leben on the old radar? Followed by X-Morph Defense, which I believe is a tactical grid-based game. XCOM is definitely a tactics game, and you've done both of them, which is super impressive because these are not easy games. You got to do things like beat the campaign in a certain number of months. I believe it's always by June. You'd think I would know having done them. You've got to do them on various different difficulties that don't necessarily stack. You've got to explore the globe, meet all of the encounters. There's quite a lot to these platinums. You get very attached to the soldiers that you make. This is definitely one I need to platinum at some point. I've done all the hard stuff in XCOM 2. I literally, for XCOM 2, I have things like beat the tutorial left, but I've beaten all the hard difficulties and the Iron Man modes. I've done all the fun stuff. I just need to do the basic stuff. And to round out the list, we have yet another Zombie Defense, which is like just a defense, like a tower-based defense sort of game, top-down shooter sort of thing. Followed by Zombie, which was a Ubisoft Wii U exclusive zombie apocalypse set in England. It's a game I've desperately wanted to play for a while. I've owned it for years and never got around to it. There's 3 playthroughs you've got to do because naturally the difficulties don't stack. That's always a fun thing. But it looks interesting. I've heard it's very janky. I've heard it's not very pretty. It's very grey. It was made for the Wii U, so I'm expecting like, the game to be built out of matchsticks and dreams. But otherwise, I'm looking forward to it. And to round out the list, you have Zombie Army 4 Dead War, which, not to brag, but I am the fastest achiever, whoop whoop, by about 4 minutes. It's a fun game made by the people that did Sniper Elite. You and up to a team of 3 other people fight waves of zombies, and by waves I mean a ton of zombies. And it's fun. You got to do a few difficulties. There's a lot of DLC. Zombie Army 4 has probably some of the worst season pass practices I've ever seen, which I'm terrified they're going to do the same for Sniper Elite 5. It kind of looks like they are, where they did like 5 season passes and they all had like 5 levels that all had like a trophy. It was a time. It was definitely a time. But let's go look at Vigilant Crow's stats real quick. So if we scroll up here, and I go across to statistics, you can see that he has 117 games for 109 completed, 96% completion on the dot. I like that quite a bit. Only 204 unearned trophies, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. You can see that my time zone is doxing me right now. That's always fun to know. We've got 737 ultra rares, 892 very rares, 1,160 rares, only 1,662 uncommons, and your rarest ones. How? How does that even work? Your rarest trophies are your commons, with only 714 of them. That is super impressive right there. Your average rarity for every game is an S rank, and it looks like November might have been your best month ever. 288 trophies in November, with your next best being February of this year with 283 trophies. Will you continue that good run into December? Do let us know. As you can see, the account was started around 2018 and it's been skyrocketing ever since, with trophies being, of course, these are reflected on Australian times, in the small hours of the morning, through to about 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and then when I'm active, you're asleep. But that has been Vigilant Crow's account. Thank you so much for letting me do it, mate. This is a very impressive account. Definitely one that I often look at for inspiration. It's a great one. Now, before I leave, I just want to address the reason why I've been a little bit absent on content recently. I've been very busy in real life. I've been traveling a little bit, doing a lot of stuff. I also have a team of builders who are about 3 meters outside that wall right there. So my time to record at the moment is very limited, unless you want to see my sweet noggin to the lovely sounds of jackhammers and broken rocks. But this has been episode maybe 24. I think it's 24 of Platinum That. If you made it this far, do tell me what you want Santa to get you in the comments below, and I will see you hopefully next week. I miss you already. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.